How the World Began Again. Chapter 1. How the Earth Got a Concrete Sky. Long ago, before the world became like it is now, there was a time when people piled so many things on top of each other that the Earth began to sink into the oceans. Of course, as the Earth began to sink, the people had to build dams to hold back the oceans from flooding the land. Until, from the sky, the dams looked like great walls peaking above the oceans all around the world, something like the Great Wall of China, only much longer and taller. When the dams were finished, the people kept piling their things, and the earth continued to sink. So they had to build the dams higher, and higher, and higher. When the dam walls shaded the sun, electric lights were attached to the concrete walls to make daylight. And at night, when the lights were dimmed, they looked something like the stars and the moon and the planets. As the dams got higher, the real sky could be seen only for a few minutes each day, and everyone kept piling their things and building their dams higher, miles and miles higher. Until one day there was an accident. The wall of one of the dams fell over and banged against the next dam, and that dam crashed against the next, and the next against the next. It was something like a house of cards suddenly collapsed and formed a kind of roof over the earth, with the ocean water flowing over the roof. And so it was that the earth ended up with a concrete sky covered with a blanket of ocean water that made the earth all warm and cozy. So people continued piling their things. The light bulb stars were still working, and the maintenance people continued to turn them on and off to make day and night, and scientists figured out how many workers it took to change a light bulb. Of course, the concrete sky looked dull and gray, so the people just made their things more and more colorful and pretty, and the earth sank so much that it all sank together, and everyone continued piling their things. Chapter 2. How the Earth Drowned. One day, some years after the dams crashed together and formed the concrete sky, there was a leak in the sky, and the ocean water began to leak into an office building. Things were now piled so high they cracked the sky. The manager of the building called the plumbers to fix the leak. The plumbers discovered that the concrete sky was filled with so many cracks, there would soon be more and more leaks. At first, it was such a little leak, people thought there was nothing to worry about, and people put buckets under their leaks and went right on piling their things. The plumbers told people to open the concrete sky and see how beautiful the sky was. Meanwhile, not only that, they told everyone that they could open the concrete sky and make their things simpler and more useful and stop piling up so many things, and to love the sun and moon and stars and planets. But the people were much too busy piling to listen to the plumbers. Higher and higher went the piles of things, and higher and higher and higher, until one day there was a great roaring sound as the concrete sky began to split apart like a gigantic egg cracking open. This was followed almost immediately by a great roaring flood. Kapow! Chapter 3: How the World Began Again. Following the terrible flood, the only things that floated to the surface were the trees and plants, plus the birds and animals who lived in and around them, plus a few scraps of wood, plus the plumbers. Everything else, all the buildings, highways, cars, buses, bridges, trains, schools, TVs, radios, computers, guns, refrigerators, stoves, chairs, tables, clocks, absolutely everything, including good people and bad people, rich people and poor people, tall people and short people, every single one drowned in the flood. All except the plumbers. They floated to the surface of the ocean along with the trees and the animals clinging to the trees, while the concrete sky and the earth were split into billions and trillions and gazillions of tiny pieces the size of sand grains. At last, things began to settle down. The waters became calm. All the tiny pieces of things began to drift together, and they joined and became land. The trees attached themselves to the land, and the animals who had been living in the trees came down and lived around the trees. And when the plumbers saw how beautiful the earth, the sun, the moon, and the stars were, they decided not to pile up so many things. And they taught their children, and their children taught their children, and all these children taught their children not to pile their things. But of course, as you might expect, after a while, people began to forget what their parents had told them, and they again began piling their things, until the earth looked pretty much like it looks right now. And that's the end of the story. You should always listen to your plumbers. The end.